step by step. Out of all the videos I do, or will be doing, there are two that are the most important videos to watch. The first relates to putting fish into your aquarium. That's where lots of people go wrong. I love biOrbs. They're a great aquarium, but they're a bit like buying an iPhone, where the instructions are like this. And I think they assume an amount of knowledge, and it's the knowledge you need to do things properly. So definitely watch that video. And this video is most people think it's probably the most boring of my videos, so I'm going to have to think of a really sexy name for it. But this is all about chemicals. I know, it's a hard life. But if you want to have an aquarium, a nice clean looking aquarium with nice healthy fish, you do need to understand about this sort of stuff. It is essential, really. That's all I can say. It's essential to understand this. And it's essential to understand this, and it helps you solve some of the problems that you might experience over time. So yes, this video is about this stuff. It's about ammonia, it's about nitrite, it's about nitrate, it's about pH as well. So I've just taken this. These are my samples from this aquarium, which I cycled with fish in around about 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks ago now. So this is how the results are looking. Once you get beyond this initial stage of settling in a tank, yes, you definitely need to have this, is my view. It's an essential thing. But once you get beyond this part and things start to balance out, feel free to move over to using strips. They aren't going to give you an accurate result, but they're going to give you a very good indication. And that indication can be enough to trick you to pick up this one again and do another test. So once you get a settled tank, after 2, 3, 4 weeks, move to doing quick tests using that, because this takes ages. It takes ages to keep doing this, and you get really sick of doing them, counting the drips. So this is a Tetra 6-in-1 strip. The only problem with this strip, this test, it doesn't test for ammonia. I'm not sure you really need to be testing for ammonia, because if you've cycled a tank, you should have very low ammonia, if at all. So certainly get those, and once a week, just dip it in, give it a wash around, and then read off against there. So do that. Once you've done your 4 days cycle, if you're using the method I did, you need to do a water change, around about, say, 25% of your water. Top that back up with treated water. You can put more colony back in with the treated water. If you want to try and balance, if you're still showing ammonia and things like that, just a capful of this, and it's not going to cause any harm. It's non-toxic. It's a natural product. So put that in. Okay, so let's talk about these things. So the first thing I want to talk about is this one. This is ammonia, and that's just come out of my aquarium. It's almost, it is zero. I have zero ammonia. Okay, at this end here is nitrate. pH I'll leave over here. So the ammonia gets converted from ammonia into nitrite, and then from nitrite through to nitrate, and that's the thing you need to be taken out of your aquarium with your regular water tests. I will do a video on water changes. I said water tests, I meant water changes. So that, and also pH. pH is important. So I'm going to go through each of those. So ammonia first. When you cycle your tank, and in the very early days, you probably are going to panic to death over the fact that your ammonia is not showing up a nice bright yellow colour like that. It's got a tinge of green, or maybe even a darker green, and you're going to start to worry about that. But I think you need to understand what your test is showing you. The ammonia test is what's called total ammonia. And in ammonia consists of two parts. There's the NH3 component and NH4. Stick with me, okay? The NH3 component of ammonia is the really toxic part of ammonia. That is the really bad part. That's the thing, and it's 100 times more toxic than NH4. So what's NH3? Otherwise it's called free ammonia. So the free ammonia component of this, or this reading, is both NH3 and NH4. It combines it into one measure. But sometimes what you really need to understand, if your results are not looking so good in terms of the colour, is of that sample, how much of it is the really toxic element, NH3. And there is an easy way of doing this. I'll need to show you a website where you can go on, and this is more about reassuring you it's, that your readings aren't necessarily as bad as you think they are. So I'll show you that now. This is the free ammonia calculator available, I referenced online, and it prompts you to put in some information that allows you to calculate from your test kit results what the components of your total ammonia, which is NH3 and NH4, is, with NH3 being your most toxic component of the water. This tool, it's very straightforward to use. You put in your reading that you've received, you need to put in your pH that you've measured, and also your temperature. Salinity is easy to deal with because by definition fresh water is water that has a salinity of 0.5 and below. So just put 0.5, that's fine. pH, I'm just going to drop that down a bit and put in something maybe a bit more typical or average. Again, this is not an indication of what your pH needs to be. So I've put in 7.6. Let's change this for me to centigrade. I'm going to put in a typical biOrb heater water temperature, say. Again, it's not indicating that's what your temperature should be. It might be 24, it might be 26. It depends on factors within your aquarium, but typical biOrb sort of heater there. So those are completed. So all you need to do now is put in your reading. So what would happen if you got a reading and you thought, oh, that's alarming, it's slightly green, it's not yellow, it seems to be 0.25, what's going to happen? Okay, at 0.25 the free ammonia concentration, which is in here, is 0.006. Now that measurement is a long way off the range that is considered tolerated by fish over a long-term period but may cause harm. That range is 0.02 to 0.05. You are a long way off being anywhere near that range. So let's increase this now to, we'll step it up a bit now. We're going to put in 1 part per million. So I've jumped up now. So 1 part per million, keep all this the same. There you go. The NH3 concentration is now reading at 0.02. So what does that mean? Well, you are still falling, you're now in the range that is considered tolerated by fish over a long term, but may cause harm. So, and you're only just coming into that band of from 0.02. So you're only just creeping in at that level. If we up this level now, let's do another big jump. I'm going to put in 4 parts. This is quite interesting because if you read the Master Test Kit book that comes with the kit, it says if your total ammonia measurement is 4, you should undertake a water change of 25% or more. So what is prompting that guidance to tell you at a measurement of 4 parts per million that you should do a quarter of a water change? You know, what is triggering that? Well, let's have a look. So at 4 parts per million, the free ammonia concentration has gone up now. It's 0.09. So what is 0.09? It's in a range, and at the very low end of the range of 0.05 to 0.2, which is considered tolerated by fish for a few days. So you're at the very start of that quite a big range. That's what 0.09 means. It's just coming into the a level that can be tolerated over a few days. I'm just going to really jump up now right to the top of the measurement from the test kit of 8, and let's have a look at what that if you've got that measurement, what is that telling you? So a measurement of 8, which is the darkest green on the API test kit, that concentration is, we'll say 0.18. What's 0.18? Well, it's still within the band of tolerated by fish for a day or two. It's only when you reach 0.5 and over that it becomes deadly, toxic. That's when your fish will have a very quick response to that level. So I think this is just telling you not to worry. So there you go. That's how you find out via a very easy and very useful website what your ammonia is split up into NH3 and NH4. It's NH3 is the thing you really got to be worried about. I'm not saying that over a long period of time that you shouldn't be targeting a 0 reading, but just live with the fact that you're not going to at first. You're not going to. And when you look at in the early days, you know, when you're getting some of your sampling, the bad levels are down here. They're not up this end, up this part of the sample. They're right down here. Those are that lower part there are when you need to do something, not these upper parts. The upper parts from cycling, early days of having an aquarium, I think are part of the course. Your fish can tolerate, and it's part of the reason why my recommendation with choosing fish is that you get what are described as hardy fish. In other words, fish that can tolerate lots of swings and lots of changes, and don't go for sensitive fish because they're not going to be able to deal with those the ups and downs of a new aquarium. Certainly go for hardy fish. The thing to know about ammonia is and the component of NH3 and NH4 is dependent on both temperature and pH. And the two, NH3 and NH4 are balanced against pH. So with a high pH, you get a drop in the NH3. With the other way around, with a low pH, you get a rise in the NH3. So that's something just to be aware of, and it's part of the reason you do the pH. So hopefully your results are starting to look a bit like this. As I said, don't panic about it. If you're not looking bright yellow, you know, you go on the internet and everybody says you should be 0. No, I'm afraid I don't agree. Yes, in a mature tank that's stable and has been going for quite a long time, yes, you should be looking at 0, but not at an early stage. So try not to overly worry about this stuff. So when you've cycled an aquarium or during that early stage, I'd say one of the most important things, yes, you can do all this stuff and it's really important, but you just use your eyes. Look at your fish. Your fish are a very good indication of things not being right. If they start acting erratic or doing, going to the surface a lot, sort of almost grasping for air, that's an indication that something needs to be looked at. So do your test, but keep an eye on your fish, especially in the early days, because they are a really good indicator. So the next one I want to talk about is this stuff. So that's my sample after 2 weeks. You can see it's zero, really. There's no hint of purple in there. It's just the indication. You need to look for that ammonia is being converted into this, and then it's being converted into the next step here. So I would expect when you early days, when you're cycling, that you're probably going to see results in these sort of regions here. As I said, don't worry about it. These things will balance themselves out over time. Don't overly panic. You haven't got a mature tank. You shouldn't be looking necessarily for zero. If you've got zero, brilliant levels. What are these indications that are showing? How is this going to affect your fish? That's sort of what you need to know. So in a new tank, you could expect your nitrite level to go right up to here, to 5. And until those bacteria start converting this stuff into nitrate, you can expect to see a fairly. I can't say that I really saw it with colony to a large extent, but it's an indication that you need to look for, and then you'll start to see this sort of colour, which is that will nitrate will move to blue, and over time, and you'll start to see nitrate increasing within your aquarium, and those are really, really good signs. That's what you need to be seeing. Nitrate over, say, 0.75, something like that, which is sort of in that sort of middle ground of the colours. It can cause stress over a prolonged period of time, and clearly, you want to get that down, but your bacteria in your aquarium and everything will settle down, and so will that. Now, the next thing is nitrate. It's one of your best friends at first, because it's telling you that your bacteria are doing a good job and they're producing this stuff. And this stuff is far less toxic than any of the other nitrite and ammonia. So, and as I said earlier, it's this stuff that you want to sort of control, and you do that by water changes. So, in the UK, we do have a nitrate problem. Turn on your tap and or go onto your supplier's website, see what their nitrate sort of level is, and if you have problems with nitrate, that's I would guess, if you're getting very strong colours, that's probably where your strong colours are coming from your tap water. So you need to test your tap water. Out of interest, this here is my tap water. That's my aquarium water, and this one is slightly darker than that one, but I would expect that because I did a water change yesterday. So you can see, I don't know if you can see, but that's the colour, that's the nitrate that's coming in my tap. That in effect is what I will be putting into my aquarium. In some areas, nitrate through the tap water can be extremely high. With mine, it's, this, I suppose it varies, by the way, as well. So, this is around about the sort of, getting on for about 20 parts per million coming in my tap. That's for these fish, that's their fresh water. If you live in an area or have a supply that has less nitrate than this, well, you're on to a winner, okay? If it's higher than this, then obviously you've got problems you need to deal with. You could probably move to Wales. Yeah, so you could move to a different place, but you're not going to do that either. So there are ways of dealing with your source nitrate levels, and what you need to be doing, the lower that is when you're putting it in, the better, really. There is no, the higher it is, the more often or more frequently you're going to have to do water changes. Unfortunately, that is one of the ways to maintain a lowish or a lower nitrate is to keep undertaking water changes. I would always say do a weekly water change regardless anyway, but you know, so how can you lower it? Again, I'm not here to sell products, but what you can do is you can use Prime, which is the conditioner that they do. That removes, you add this to your tap water, it removes your chlorine, your chloramine, but it also deals with nitrite and nitrate. The reason I didn't recommend it in my essential video is because this is a market lead. This is a market leader sort of product. It is, if you like, if you wanted a professional water conditioner sort of treatment for tap water, it is Prime, and it's aimed at people who have huge tanks. It's not necessarily aimed at people who have these little things like we do. So the reason I didn't go for it is because you know that when I do my water changes, I'm dealing with the 5 litre quantities. So I do a water change of 2 bottles typically. Now, because this is so concentrated, you only need to put about 3 drops of this into tap water. So it's a very small quantity that you need to put in, which is a bit scary, the small amount that you need to put in. And if you want to use this, and you do need to lower your nitrates from your tap water, all I can suggest is that you get a dropper, like one of these. I prefer the ones with these sort of slightly bent ends, and then give this a good shake, put that in there, and then into your tap water of 5 litres, 3 drops. Give it a good stir, and that's it. If you're worried about it, you can test it before you put it into your aquarium, but 3 drops is what's recommended by Seachem themselves. So that's one way of doing it. And I do that sometimes. So get Prime and use that if that's one way you want to do it. Fine, absolutely fine. As I said, it's industry standard, sort of high quality sort of product, but very concentrated. What's the alternative? Well, I'll tell you what my alternative is. I do use Prime, but I'm quite lucky because the pH I have in my tap water is almost the same as this stuff here. And this isn't tap water in here. This is still Scottish mountain water by Sainsbury's, and it's not far off being the same as my tap water, and that's the reason I use it, because it's very, very similar in terms of its composition. Now let me show you what the nitrate level is in this stuff. It's that. That's the difference between my tap water as it comes in, my tap, and that's the difference between the two, and that's the nitrate in this stuff here that you buy from the shops. It's expensive compared to tap water, but what I would recommend is, as long as your pH is very similar to this here, and check it and do all those other things, but it has, for me, it's a useful product. The pH is, as I said, about the same as mine, it's around 7.4, which is almost the same as my tap water. So what I normally do is I mix this 50-50 with my tap water. So I use a bottle, I line it, so roughly half and half. Half a bottle of tap water, half a bottle of the this mountain water. That's what I do. But don't just jump into it. Make sure, because if you're going to start messing around with pH and things like that, you might have an impact on your fish. But if your pH is around about 7.4 coming from your tap, then you might want to look at that, or alternatively go down the prime route. As well as tap water nitrate, what other things can influence nitrate levels? And arguably the same for ammonia and nitrite and nitrate. Another culprit for a large increase in nitrate is actually overfeeding fish, and I think it's a common thing that people do. Ideally, you want to avoid overfeeding fish. The problem with fish is they will always beg to be fed. It doesn't matter. You feed them and then go back 10 minutes later, and they'll act almost like they haven't been fed for days. That's what fish do. They're opportunistic. Any chance they get of any sort of food, they will take it. And they'll even eat it, even though they're not necessarily getting a lot of nutrition from it. So, you're better off feeding them very lightly. And I've seen advice that says feed, a small amount here and maybe 3 times a day. No, it's not how I would do it. I feed my fish once a day, and I give them a small amount of food. Generally the rule is feed them as much as those fish will clear up within no longer than 5 minutes. They want to be finished the food, and once you get used to that, you'll know that it is quite a small amount. And I only feed them once a day. A fish turns around its food within about, it's the best part of 24 hours. It's certainly around about 18 hours and over for a fish to convert what it's eaten out the other end. So you need to be sort of feeding them in accordance with that sort of cycle of nutrients going through them. High nitrate increases is very often or linked to feeding fish too much and too frequently. Ignore what they might be indicating to you. Ignore the we're starving banging every time we see you. I guarantee you, I can go to this aquarium here and they'll all act as though they haven't been fed for ages. When they've already had a nice amount of food, that's it for the day. Don't get caught up into feeding them on demand, because they'll demand all day long, and you'll go through food and you'll end up with nitrate levels sky high, and you could end up with dead fish. So don't overfeed your fish. There are a couple of things I think where, as I said, these results, you might panic about it. Yeah, well, we've all been there. But don't overly panic about your results. You won't see that anywhere on the internet. They'll all say, no, you must have 0 this, 0 that. Yeah, fine, in the long term, yes. But in the early days of setting up a tank, and a biOrb's a closed aquarium, it's closed. There's no inputs of water and all this sort of stuff, all this sort of fancy stuff that you get on these big aquariums. The water is the water that's in there. And the only influence on that water really is you and your fish. You become part of this process. Without you, the process will fall, to be honest, at this size tank. So I would expect some strange results at first. As long as your fish are okay and looking happy, that's really what you should be bothered about. If your results are coming in this sort of region here, yes, check it, keep an eye on it, but don't don't necessarily expect perfect results all the time. It will change up and down, up and down. You need to just do things right. You know, you've got to use the amounts that they say. You've got to use 5 ml. And here's a tip. You might say, "Oh, that's obvious." I bet it's not for a lot of people. Here's some water, and I've actually seen people, very serious people with aquariums, and how they take a sample of their water. This line here on this test kit is 5 ml, and a lot of people will put it into their aquarium like this. And yeah, oh, I'm near, just a bit more. Oh, now I'm too much, and now I've got to, yeah. And about an hour later, maybe, if they're lucky, they might get, oh, that's actually quite good for me. You might get near enough on the line. So that's one way that people do it. Another way that people make sure it's at 5 ml is they fill it up, put it in, they put the thumb over the end, and they do this. And they keep doing that till it's roughly 5 ml. There. Now, I don't like that either. I'm going to say what I think you should do, is because you don't know what's on your hand. You know, you're putting your thumb over here. You know, there are chemicals. You might have just been COVID shopping and covered your hands with antibacterial gel. You might have conditioner on your hand. You might have all sorts of things. You've got salts coming off your hands. You've got ammonia. You've got all sorts coming off your thumbs. So you could contaminate that. You could wear gloves, I suppose, but you could contaminate it. And I think either this approach of do it like this, what it leads to is it leads to the that's close enough scenario. And so does this one lead to the oh, that's close enough. And sometimes close enough isn't good enough, to be honest. You are measuring parts per million. You're putting in small drops of chemicals to work out what your composition is. So you do need to have 5 ml, not near enough, not oh just slightly over, oh not just slightly less. You need to have 5 ml. How do you do it? Right. My video about essentials said these are really good, and I have this one that I just purely keep with this, and what this is good for, it's obvious now, you're thinking, is from the aquarium you can extract there, and then you can go right down to little drops until you get exactly perfect measurement. And that took me seconds. And by doing that, you know your water, your level is exactly the right amount to undertake the test. So there you go. There's another tip. Okay. I think that's really. Oh, right. Okay. So the last thing is pH. Okay. This is my pH here. Your pH will vary according to where you're from, and as long as you're within the parameters of the fish you have, mine's around about sort of 7.4. Part of the reason why you need to do water changes, and I did suggest you need to be doing them sort of weekly, is the whole process of bacteria and converting ammonia through to nitrite and then into nitrate it can or will lower your pH over time. So by topping up the water, you're refreshing the pH level in there, and you're putting in a buffer in effect. So pH is quite important. As I mentioned, pH is very much linked to ammonia. Here, ammonia, and the level of the NH3 or free ammonia and the NH4. Those two things are sort of balanced. So pH it's fairly important. And more than anything else, what you're looking for is a stability of pH. You know, if your pHs are varying quite a lot, and you know, this is what I was saying about if you're adding water into your aquarium, doing it the way I suggested, you know, just make sure that if you're doing it that way, that your pH is about the same as, roughly about the same as your tap water, and then sort of mix it accordingly. You know, just check your pH. You know, don't go for a complete different in pH, because it will affect your fish. You know, they can have quite a bad reaction to a change in pH. So there you go. A very boring subject, but at the same time a very important subject. I hope when you do your cycling and you move towards having that after a couple of weeks, a bit like me, you're going to be starting to see those sorts of levels. On nitrate, a question would be, when should you be undertaking water change, or when is it starting to look sort of problematic for the fish? Roughly, I'd say around about, you don't want to really go over 50 parts per million, and you know, a sort of a value parts per million of say 40, which is quite a reddish colour, is something where you need to start to worry. That's 40 here. So yeah, so around about sort of 40 would trigger me to think, I need to do a water change. 50, that sort of 40, 50 sort of areas is really where you need to start sort of thinking. Again, fish can tolerate an increase higher than that, but you know, it's something you are in control of, something that you can easily do. And if you, by taking the water changes, removing the water, you're in effect taking some of this out of your aquarium. So there you go. Phew. I haven't been looking forward to doing this. You know, the one on chems, because for a lot of people it's not exactly the most exciting thing, but at the same time it's probably one of the most important things that you need to know about. So I've covered it at a very high level. Have a look, you know, look at the topic, you know, get your head around it. I've sort of done the key things, but it is quite complicated, but you know, do try and get your head around that. So and I hope you find that useful. And don't forget one of these. They cost next to nothing. They'll save you hours of time trying to get 5 mil. There you go. Right, thanks for watching. Take care. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Right, take care. Thank you.